Have you ever wondered how the United States went from a collection of states on one continent to a major player on the world stage? What led a once isolated nation to claim lands like Alaska and Hawaii and compete with European empires? By the end of this video, you'll understand the story of American expansionism, a pivotal moment in history when the US stepped onto the global stage. Today, we're diving into how economic pressures, strategic ambitions, and even racial ideologies shaped U.S. foreign policy in the late 1800s. You'll learn about key events from the purchase of Alaska, once mocked as Seward's Folly, to the overthrow of Queen Liliuokalani in Hawaii. Let's begin. In the late 1800s, the United States embarked on a new course in foreign policy. For most of its history, the U.S. had been focused on expanding westward, fulfilling manifest destiny and avoiding foreign entanglements. But suddenly, the focus shifted outward. Why? With booming industries producing more goods than Americans could consume, business leaders were desperate for new markets overseas. At the same time, global competition was fierce. European powers were carving up territories in Africa and Asia. The U.S. feared being left behind. By the turn of the 20th century, America's goals were clear: expand its economy, secure key territories, and project military power around the globe. So, what were the economic motives? American factories were producing a surplus of goods, more than citizens could buy. Business leaders saw global markets as the solution. They wanted to sell goods abroad and access raw materials to fuel industry. For example, Alaska's copper and Hawaii's sugar plantations became critical resources. While America debated expansion, European powers were busy establishing colonies in Africa and Asia. Americans worried that if they didn't act, they'd be shut out of global trade and influence. The United States wanted to be a part of the global competition. In order for the United States to expand its territory and be able to compete globally, the United States needed a strategy. Alfred T. Mahan, a U.S. naval officer, had a bold idea. A strong navy and overseas naval bases would make the United States a world power. His ideas gained support, especially when leaders looked to the Pacific for strategic bases. So, by the late 1800s, expansionism was no longer just an idea, it was a priority. What's the difference between expansionism and imperialism? While they often overlap, there's a key distinction. Imperialism. It's about control, economic, political, or military, over weaker nations. Think of Britain in India or France in Africa. Expansionism focuses on increasing a country's territory and influence. For example, the U.S. acquiring Alaska wasn't about ruling over people. It was about gaining resources. But expansionism had its complications too. As we'll see with Hawaii, not all expansion was peaceful or justified. One uncomfortable truth about American expansion is how racism shaped its goals. Many imperialists believed in the superiority of white, English-speaking Americans. In Hawaii, Queen Liliuokalani attempted to restore power to the native Hawaiian government. But American settlers, supported by U.S. Marines, overthrew her monarchy, claiming that Hawaiians needed guidance. These ideas weren't just American, they mirrored European attitudes, but they justified policies that often ignored or harmed indigenous populations. In 1867, Secretary of State William Seward purchased Alaska from Russia for $7.2 million. At the time, critics mocked it as Seward's Folly, calling the land a frozen wasteland. But Alaska turned out to be a treasure trove. Gold was discovered in the 1880s, drawing settlers during the Klondike Gold Rush. By 1898, the discovery of copper made Alaska even more valuable. Seward's icebox wasn't so foolish after all. Hawaii, an island chain in the Pacific, was crucial for two reasons: its fertile land for sugar plantations and its location as a naval base. However, the United States faced a conflict. In 1891, Queen Liliuokalani sought to limit American influence by introducing a new constitution. Most native Hawaiians supported her, but American settlers, backed by U.S. Marines, staged a revolt. President Harrison signed a treaty to annex Hawaii in 1893, but President Cleveland delayed it. opposing the overthrow. By 1898, during the Spanish-American War, Hawaii's strategic importance led Congress to annex it. Native resistance, led by Queen Liliuokalani, was strong, but ultimately, Hawaii became a U.S. territory. After her overthrow, Queen Liliuokalani didn't stop fighting. In a letter to Congress, she wrote, "I call upon the President to restore to me this property, which is being withheld by your government." Her words remind us of the human cost of expansionism, the loss of sovereignty and culture for native populations. So what did American expansion achieve? Economic growth. New territories provided resources, gold and copper from Alaska, sugar from Hawaii, and markets for goods. Strategic strength. Naval bases in Hawaii allowed the U.S. to project power across the Pacific. Global influence. By 1900, the United States wasn't just a continental power, it was a global competitor. Now it's your turn. Think about these questions. What motivated American expansionism in the late 1800s? Was the annexation of Hawaii justified? How did expansion change America's global role? Drop your answers in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. From Seward's Folly to Hawaii's annexation, American expansionism transformed the nation. It brought economic opportunities, but it also raised questions about justice and power. If you got a lot of value out of this video, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button and the bell so you won't miss any future videos. Thanks for watching.